Counting down live. We are live. Hey everybody, we're live on air. Welcome to a very special Shawn Miller Show. We are making celebrity entrepreneurs here at an exclusive event in Holland, Michigan, and we're sharing with you the opportunity to join us live. And Celebrity Entrepreneur is a new space in our marketplace in which we can command the influence and access to wield the ultimate legacy and build whatever we want for ourselves. And we've got some really high-powered entrepreneurs in the room. The last few going through our pyramid of allure on the whiteboard, and we're talking about creating a position of authority in a marketplace and celebrity such that ideal clients and prospects are already following us. And we have a really cool special guest for the live show. Welcome the Metal Motivator, CJ Ortiz.
Hey, man. Great to be with you guys. Thank you so much, Shawn. I really appreciate this, man.
Awesome, awesome. We're real glad to have you, and I'm going to step out of these guys' way. And there's more people in the room that you can't see, but I'm going to jump back here. So, CJ, I know that, well, first of all, I just want to compliment you. I think I want to say publicly on the air that I absolutely love what you do and how you do it.
Thank you.
I love that you present yourself in an absolute authentic way and leverage that personality and persona and the things that you're passionate about and match it with what I believe to be world-class chops in personal development. I compliment you on that. And
I appreciate it.
I think that, you know, somebody said Metallica meets Tony Robbins, and that's pretty funny, but I don't know if that quite covers what you do, man. But first of all, would you talk just a little bit about how and why, you know, just your personal position, you know, how and why are you the Metal Motivator? Why are you doing what you're doing?
My simple, you know, the other half of my life is marketing and doing much the same as some of the things that you guys do in there, which is, I think, why it's so, to me, one of the highest compliments I get is what you just said. And of course, there's my friend Tony there as well, and we've had that interaction too. It's because you guys, you get it. You know the science behind it. You know the principles that are being utilized. You know, communications principles in this day and age, establishing authority and branding and that type of thing. The age of the solopreneur. So, you know, it's one thing for those who receive just the daily motivation and what that means to them. Of course, that has a tremendous amount of meaning for me. However, you guys, again, know what's going on, you know, behind the scenes. You know what's going on in the kitchen. You know how we're cooking this type of stuff. And not to say that it's in any way undermined or whatever. You know, this is a science to communications. Communications is as principle-based as anything there is. But I've always been of the persuasion, you know, there's a lot of confusion right now about branding, but people think branding is just like when your logo matches your website, or, you know, somebody wears all orange, that somehow that's branding, or if you call yourself, you know, whatever, you know, the clown motivator, that somehow that's branding. That's not really branding. Branding is something that happens in the mind, and for me, branding is about ideas. It's about having an enterprise that is idea driven. And here's the difference. I define it this way: if you don't have a strong idea pushing your brand, pushing your enterprise, then you're basically like a champion surfer trying to catch a wave on a freshwater lake. If you go anywhere, it's only because you paddle very hard, and that's what a lot of people are doing. They're paddling. So, for example, on social media, they're running contests and events and this and that, all these clickbaiting and things that they're trying to do to get followers instead of really being influencers. When you have an idea pushing you, it's amazing how much happens organically, and that's what's happened with me. You know, the page is, we're closing in on about 43,000 followers on Facebook, but for the followers and the reach is two different things. My reach is upwards of 250,000 people a week. So that's how much it's being shared. That's how much the content is being engaged with and distributed. You're only going to get that if there's a strong idea that pushes it. And so for me, the idea was always there. For there to be a metal motivator was always there. I just kind of put a face and a name to it. Because not many people, some, but not many people were taking, you know, classical music necessarily to the gym with them. They weren't taking the Carpenters to the gym with them. They tend to, you're going to do something that's going to be more aggressive. It may not be heavy metal, but it'll probably be something faster paced, whether it's a hip hop or, something rock and roll or whatever. It'll be a fast pace because that's what you're engaged in. The other thing is that heavy metal itself has always been marginalized. It never got the airplay. The early metal bands, the Sabbaths, the Iron Maidens, the Judas Priests, the Who, they never got airplay. They were not viable for top 40 audiences. So heavy metal had to create its own international audience all by itself with anything but friendly acceptance. All it faced was resistance. So for something to become a global movement of hundreds of millions of people who love this music, which came out of obscurity, to me is the epitome of personal development. It's the epitome of what it takes to not be, stopped by the obstacles. For example, you remember in the 80s, the Rob Halfords and the Twisted Sisters were in front of the censorship boards and being accused of making kids commit suicide. Remember how it was back then. It was censored. It was hated. It was despised. Now you go to a football game and you hear heavy metal at halftime. Now you go to a football game and you hear it in the commercials. Heavy metal is everywhere now. So people, plus now that you've got reality stars like the Bret Michaels, the Nikki Sixxes, the Dog the Bounty Hunter, the what's his name, Billy the Exterminator, Gene Simmons. So these kind of characters are now more mainstream and more accepted. So somebody like me it's going to be much more palatable now. So I just kind of took what I'd always loved. I'd seen somebody do something and they called themselves, it was like a rock and roll motivation thing, but I actually thought it was very weak. It didn't have a strong brand. So I said, if you're really going to do this right, you would do it a metal motivation. So I used to have a project called 10 Times More, and I worked with another coach on it, and he went to go run for Congress, and he said, listen, it's your baby anyway, you take it. So I was kind of left with this thing called 10 Times More, and just as I worked and refined it, I just said, I really want to do something different with this, and so I started to create the idea behind it, which was something, again, that was there's integrity to it, because it wasn't disingenuous to use metal as a motivating factor, even though people see the black and the skulls and the whatever, and they think that's evil. That's all vaudeville, man. Nobody's really chopping heads off of things. Nobody's really bowing down and worshiping the that's all vaudeville, man. You ask these people, who claim to be so evil or whatever, do you really believe in evil things? Do you believe in abuse? Do you believe the abuse of children or women? Or they would say, absolutely not. Well, then why are you doing all this? It's just the vaudeville aspect of it. But there is, again, something to it. There's an edge to it. There's a distinction to it. There's a clarity to it. There's a uncompromising nature to it. So people would think, for example, that the metal motivator is just going to get on there and cuss and yell and scream. If anybody was to listen to any of my videos and just take the image off and just listen to the audio, I sound no different than a preacher. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with the outlook. It has to do with again, being, you use the term authentic. And, we use terms like that in marketing now because we're trying to communicate that idea that we need to be real. And I think that's where people kind of get confused with social media and why they're so puzzled by it, because they think, oh my goodness, this is some new thing. This is some new technology that we just, we can't figure out. It requires secrets. It requires mysteries. It requires, you have to understand all the hidden principles. No, it's no different than what we're doing right here. It's just digital. It's the best way of communication because it's people to people. And if you start losing the relationship factor, start calling it things like engagement, it doesn't work anymore. Just talk to people. Just help them. Solve their problem. You'll create value for yourself.
That's cool. CJ, thank you for that. It's a great intro and a great setup and a lot of support of what we've been talking about here actually already. We talked about, the person being the foundation of the pyramid, what we call pyramid of allure, which is a lot of technical mumbo jumbo. But we refer to social media as people's media, and what we'll be teaching part of this afternoon is what I still call the party principle, and how we connect with people just as we would around barbecue grill online, and then find out, what do they like, what are they about, and what are they interested in, and how do we potentially, are we friends, right? Do we want to be friends? Are we going to move forward? Are we going to hang out together again? And that's the success that I've had online, and so I'm supposedly very influential according to all those people that measure engagement, right? But the reality is, to me, it's just me being me and talking about things I'm interested in to other people that I think are interested in the same thing. And it's really no more complicated than that. Hey, one of the things that we're talking about that I'd love your opinion on, because I think your what I've heard you preach about, if I use that word, that personal development is really, really powerful. So I've challenged these folks in the last few minutes, and the viewers of my shows and things generally are challenged to become an authority in their marketplace, one who creates and sets standards in their marketplace. And there's a lot of reasons that we do that, but that's the vision where we're going. And I've asked them, challenged them to simultaneously to create celebrity to themselves, such that those people that are interested in that same problem that they solve actually begin to follow them, right, and engage with them, and it builds an allure that makes them more powerful. But what happens about this time of the day, if I'm honest, is people start to have self-doubt about their ability to do that, and they start to wonder, if they can do that, and is that okay? And can you talk a little bit about your experience in breaking through self-imposed limits of what our potential is?
Well, I can't because I haven't. No, I'm kidding. That's
well, we all got demons, man.
That's right. And I've never sinned either. It's that's a tough one, because you have guys like yourself or me and whoever else that have more of a gift of gab. We don't have a problem talking in front of people. As I'm sure everybody knows, one of the greatest fears is speaking in front of people, whether it be a live audience or online, because we're very self-conscious, and that's tough. Obviously, as anybody would say, regards to fear, you just got to keep doing this sort of thing until you get to the place. However, it's like sales, always been to me. I'll have some people say, no, I'm just not a salesman. I'm just not a salesman. No, maybe you're not a car salesman. Maybe you're not an insurance salesman. Maybe you're not a real estate agent, but you're a salesman. Let me ask you about your kids. Let me ask you about your favorite hobby. Let me ask you about your favorite TV show. Let me ask you about your favorite music, and you will go off like a car salesman. So if you ever listen to people talk at a party and they're talking about something that they love, they sound very much like salespeople because they're just very passionate about it. So everybody is. If you're not, you're dead. There's always something you're going to be passionate about. So if somebody's having a challenge initially with what they do, then I'm going to challenge them to say, do you really love what you do? Are you really passionate about this? Maybe you're doing something that may be just a good idea branding-wise, but not necessarily what you're genuinely passionate about. If it's something that you're just kind of giving halfway an effort just because you think it's going to be monetarily advantageous to you, yeah, you're going to have a problem being, as said, authentic about it. You're going to have a problem giving yourself over to it. Secondly, is how well do you know what you say you know? Because part of the problem is we're just not really sure. So we're putting ourselves out there to be established as an authority, and we don't necessarily know fully what we're talking about. And we mentioned earlier being a preacher, and one of the things that I love about, to me, the best personal development book ever is the Bible. But if you consider some of the things that were told, like to the prophets, like to Ezekiel, it was the idea of eating the scroll. God had told him, eat the scroll, and by eating it, it got into him, and it became bitterness, and then he started to speak. King David said, I imbibed it, and as I mused, the fire burned, then spake I with my tongue. The more you muse on what it is you're passionate about, or even what it is you're angry about. As one guy once said, the problem that infuriates you the most is the one you're assigned to solve. You know, what pisses you off? You know, what problem about your marketplace really makes you mad? Because that's something you really need to address, and that's something you'll be passionate about. If you're having a reluctance doing anything, the issue is not fear so much as it is you're not pissed off enough, you're not passionate enough. You'll do whatever it is you value most. You're gonna do it. So to me, I would steer somebody towards that, because I think when we're trying to do something that's really not what we should be doing, or maybe not the way we should be doing it, then you're going to have these issues of fear and what have you. But anybody who's truly passionate about something, anybody who's truly angry about something, you know, then, and I'm talking about a righteous anger. I'm not talking about being, you know, just angry at the world. I mean a righteous indignation where you're just like, no, this is a problem I'm created to solve, and I want to get busy doing it. To me, that's where I push them first, because I think anything else is surface. Anything else is a mind game. I want to turn them towards what their power center is, which is passion, anger, our strongest emotions, love. You know, if I start messing with somebody's kid, I guarantee you all fear goes out the window. If they're too afraid they can't defend their own children, then we've got serious, serious issues here. You do not even belong in business, let alone operating heavy machinery. So let's get that out of the way. The issue is getting you steered to what you love, what you're angry. Now, when I say angry, like for example, I'm angry about the fact that, you know, when I post things, I hear from people who are overwhelmed with addictions, constantly doubting themselves, have all this potential, being told by institutions that they can't, being told by loved ones that they can't. That pisses me off, man. I hate those plastic chains that are keeping people bound. They're in doorless prison cells. They could walk out at any time, but they refuse to because of the dialogue in their head. Yeah, it's blasting through that. If I can get them down to really at the center of who they are, get that passion, get that fire stirred up again, man, they'll push past that fear all by themselves. So as business leaders, as voices, as celebrity entrepreneurs, you got to get centered around what you're the most passionate about. And I don't care what it is. It doesn't have to, you know, you think it's got to be something big like personal development. No, not necessarily. It could be about flow charts. Because there's millions of people around the world who love talking about flow charts. You know, there's so many segments that you could target and focus on. And yeah, I'd push them to what pisses them off, man.
There were so many profound things there that people were taking notes, and there's so many profound wisdom there. I appreciate that. So we've got written on the board where you're projecting next to you, right above the basis of you, it says the problem that I must solve, and that's the number one. It says must in all caps, and the exclamation point, the problem that I must solve. And then through that, then is we talk about what's going on in the marketplace. We talk about distraction and competition and commoditization, and that's where we have to break through that, right? And that's where that the skill set, the tactics of marketing and things that we use to actually break through that level. But the whole point at the very top of that drawing, it says to build a legacy, right? To make the lasting, have the influence and the access that you need to make a really lasting solution to that problem that you want to solve. And so I'm really grateful to share that. Really good stuff. The other thing that you mentioned, practicing your chops, and I don't think you use those words, but we talk about practicing your chops and knowing your stuff. And I have a guy that helped me on video initially, and his sage advice the first time I did it, he said, well, the first time you do it, it's going to suck, right? And then the second time, it's going to suck a little less. And then, the second thing, okay. And so I had a client yesterday, he's already with my pitch, and I said, great. Put your phone on selfie mode, hit video, and send me your pitch. It never came, right? So he emailed me happily, but to pick up his own phone and speak to his own self in his own voice about what he really wanted to say, that was scary. he wasn't willing to. I don't know if he did it for himself, but he did send it to me. So I appreciate you sharing that. And we have a question in the room. Tony, you want to ask a question?
Well, CJ, thank you for your time. I'm a huge fan, thanks to Shawn Miller. I'm pointing at him. We have dialogued a little bit on Facebook. I've watched some of your videos, and really compliment first and then a question. I commend you for taking something that's near and dear to me, heavy metal, and niching it to the point where you've combined motivation, which is my passion.
Right.
The question is this: where do you see your message growing the next few years? Two parts. Where do you see it growing the next several years? And secondly, how is the metal community embracing you, like Rob Halford to Metallica? Do they know about you? Because they should know about you.
Well, yeah, I mean, for me, a dream come true would be able to sit down across the table from James Hetfield of Metallica and just, you know, talk. Not that I would advise him or anything, but just to be able that things would get to that level that I'd be able to, you know, that he would take somebody like me seriously and take some time. You know, the idea a couple of years ago had actually landed on the desks of a production company, a reality show production company that does like Wife Swap and Secret Millionaire and Pawn Stars and that kind of thing. And so for a while there, they were seriously considering me and my business partner, who's you don't see much. He's in my older videos, but they considered, you know, giving us a reality show. So one of the things that I realized initially was that it had a great crossover effect. You know, it could cross over. You know, I would consider you guys a crossover, but not necessarily. Not everybody would look at you guys and say, "Oh yeah, those guys are metalheads." But you'd be surprised. I walked around the other day in a store with a vintage Iron Maiden, vintage Iron Maiden T-shirt on, and I must have been stopped 3 or 4 times. I'm walking by the butcher, and the butcher goes, "Love your shirt, man." So there's metalheads everywhere, you know.
Up the irons, baby, up the irons.
Yeah, exactly, up the irons. So I mean, the metal community has a lot of people initially. A lot of people thought it was a joke. They thought it was. Well, this is going to be obviously something funny because the metalhead would really mock something like this. They wouldn't honestly suggest, you know. And I would tell them in the early days, I'd say it ain't self-help, it's metal help. Because why do you listen to heavy metal? So I tell people this way. I say, listen, why do I do what I do? What heavy metal did for me is what I'm doing for others. That should make sense. I didn't listen to heavy metal because it destroys my life. I listen to heavy metal because it motivates me, it invigorates me, it gives me that extra pull, it gives me that extra, you know, whatever. So if that's the case, then I'm going to go ahead and do that for others. So to me, it was self-explanatory. But for initially, people were like, "What is this? We've never seen anything like this," which is often the case. Sometimes with some of your ideas that you guys might try, people may never have thought of something like that before. You know, but it's like Steve Jobs would say, you know, people don't know what they want until you show it to them. You know, so I'm showing them something. Ah, okay. But then they realize it was always on the table. So long as people were listening to metal and being motivated by it, then it was always there for someone to take. I just happened to be the one that took it. You know, but initially it was thought of that way, and then they really started to acclimate to it. Sure, you know, metalheads are a unique bunch. Because you get all kinds, just like anywhere else. You get all kinds. You get those who are just disgruntled and unhappy, and they don't want to even suggest. They're just extreme libertarians, so they don't want to suggest the necessity of anything or admit to anything to say it's a crutch or it's a this or it's a that. But for the most part, I'm surprised how little trolling I get, even on YouTube. You know, and I've got thousands of subscribers on YouTube, and it's probably maybe less than 1% would even try to troll. People just, I don't know what it is. I guess it's not just the metal thing. It's probably a little bit more of my personality. You know, it doesn't come across. It's not that I come across, you know, chest beating macho, so to speak. It's just what, you know, I guess what real masculinity would be: very decisive, strong sense of conviction, authoritative, confident, unmoved. You know, clear, clear and distinct ideas with perspective. This is real masculinity, not, you know, cage matches and, you know, lawn mowers and rock climbing and bass boats and all that other horse shit. I'm talking about real old school Spartan stuff. You know, and I think that's probably why I've been able to manage to get by without getting that kind of feedback. But so now it's just very well received. There are, you know, if you want to say B-list metal celebrities that are very aware of who I am and what I do. Some of them have become very good friends of mine. And I think it's just going to keep going. It was, I don't know if you've ever read any Al Reese and Jack Trout. If you want to understand branding, read Jack Trout and Al Reese. Don't read anybody else. These guys are the originals. There's them and David Ogilvy. Other than that, everybody else is a bad echo. So all these new books about somebody's... No. Go read Positioning, The Battle of the Mind. They just keep writing the same book over and over and over again. Trust me, you'll think everything that I do in terms of communications, in terms of branding, in terms of you name it, comes from Trout and Reese. End of discussion. You go anywhere else, you're dumb. That's massive name dropping there. But here's the
I want to thank you again. I'm going to share this real fast. One of my goals, I have my goal sheet here, is to interview Metallica before I check out of here. So we're on the same thought track, brother.
Yeah, that's the key, man. Is you know, knowing what is your litmus test for success, and for me that is. But lastly, you know, where is this going? Well, that's part of the. Again, this is Reese and Trout. It's success. I define success not as something that happens inside you. Success is what happens outside of you as you learn to take advantage of the opportunities that are passing your ass every day. Yeah. You know what I mean? You're looking for what Reese and Trout would call a horse to ride. Like, for example, let's look at a champion surfer again, using the surfer analogy. They can believe in themselves, right? They can have the greatest self-confidence in the world as a champion surfer. They can be extremely good at what they do. None of that matters if they don't catch the right wave. If they stay out there on a lake all day, or on the Atlantic, which is much more still than the Pacific, it doesn't matter how good they are. It doesn't matter how confident they are. You've got to have a wave to ride. So seizing opportunities, you know, being in the right place at the right time happens several times a day for those who are prepared. If you're prepared, being in the right place at the right time will happen often. So success is not so much what happens inside you, it's what happens outside you as you seize opportunities. So, for example, Metal Motivation was not in my 5-year plan. Remember, I was doing something else. So the idea came, I seized it, and that changed the direction of the next 5 years of my life. So it's like, well, then what am I getting at? Well, it's why I mentioned Reese and Trout. They referred to talking about public relations, you know, getting third parties to speak about you. And they referred to if you see at whatever level you're at, media paying attention to you, then you can guarantee that it will eventually reach the highest levels of media. So, for example, like this. I've been asked to speak at events because of what I do. I didn't pursue anybody. I didn't send out press packs. They just reach out and say, hey, dude, would you mind being on our radio show? I want to do a blog interview with you. I want to have you in my Google Hangout. I want you to come speak at our seminar. If that's happening at this level, then it will eventually happen with the Wall Street Journal, right? So long as because nothing's broke. It's already working. It's already having its influence. So in that sense, what I anticipate to happen is the future to resemble the past, only bigger. So am I targeting certain things? I don't know, because I didn't anticipate what would happen now. What's important is that I stay very, very close to my mission, which is my thesis. That's what I define as a thesis. Thesis is that thing which you are seeking to establish. What is it I'm trying to establish? I'm trying to solve the problem I'm the most pissed off about. I'm trying to preach the message I'm the most passionate about, to create the kind of lives that make the world a better place. And so long as I'm honest about that and I'm committed to it, then people are going to be excited, and excited people can't help but tell other people about what they're excited about. So, like, for example, I'll run Facebook page like ads, ads to get people to come on board. Then when I look at the metrics, my organic reach always beats my paid like ads by over 50%, constantly. Why? Because it's, use the scripture again. When Jesus was talking about himself, the Pharisee said to him, "Your testimony is not valid because you speak of yourself." Right? Well, that's public relations. Public relations is if you're telling me about yourself, you're advertising. If the Wall Street Journal tells me about you, then that testimony is valid. Right? In the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, everything is established. So it's having somebody else talk about you that makes your testimony valid. That's what you want. Sharing, likes are for suckers. You want sharing. You want people talking about you just because they can't help it. That happens when you embody an idea. When you really embody an idea, that's what we refer to as incarnation. When the intangible, when the invisible concept, the invisible form, as Plato would call it, when that takes on flesh and blood, now you've got an idea. Now you've got influence because you're embodying something. And you'll know it because they'll start calling you hero. They'll start calling you legend. Because you embody something. It's incarnation. When ideas take on flesh and blood, that's only going to happen if you're true to yourself. If you're true to what you believe, true to what you're passionate about, you will embody it. That's the ultimate way that you become that celebrity entrepreneur, by embodying an idea.
Wow. I could listen to you all afternoon, and I know you love your stuff, and it just keeps getting better. And I have overextended the time I asked for, and I want to respect you so you can go connect with some other dudes. And I thank you so much, CJ, for joining us. And I'm gonna, if you want to close, you have a closing volley.
Yeah, I'm, just finishing with what I just said. Oh, you can find me. What I would do is, for this group, I have 2 sites, metalmotivation.com and then cjortiz.com. I would encourage this group to be at cjortiz.com, only because I have a lot about branding and ideas and marketing and that sort of thing. I think they might find stuff there helpful. There's also where my product page is, so you can see the kind of information products that I produce. I'm just encouraging you to buy them. I want you to see how they're done. I want you to see how this stuff is executed. If I have to leave you with anything, it's that last charge about embodying an idea, because I felt that, even prophetically of sorts, that it's just, I want to charge you guys, get as close as you can to that intangible idea that you represent. Really embody that, become one with that, because when we embody ideas, we become something greater than we are. It's like coming home remember when you were little kids and you came home from watching the action movies, and for the next 2 hours you became those characters with your friends and your brothers. You're running out and you became something, you were inflated. Like Super Mario, when he eats the mushroom, he becomes bigger than he is. Ideas are what infuse us with life, and they make us larger, and they make us symbols, they make us emblems, they make us archetypes. So find what that is about you, give yourself wholly to it, as Paul said, and your profiting will appear to all.
I love it. I love it. I don't have to tell you to metal up, but I can tell you thank you very much. And thanks for all the viewers. And CJ and everybody else, this will be available as a recording as soon as we go off air. And lots and lots of people will get to see this, and lots of people should get to see this and connect with you and hear your message. So thank you, sir. You have blessed us with your time and wisdom, and absolutely get it right out of the park. And we thank you very much. Thanks, everybody that's watching.
Bye, guys.
We'll be back.